guys, my name's Kristen, and as we all know, it's Thanksgiving season, which for most of us means Friendsgiving season as well. All of us being college students, we don't have a whole lot of time to put together an entire Thanksgiving feast to bring to our friend's house. So today I thought I'd make a video on how to make an easy pumpkin loaf that takes about an hour-ish to bake, and prep time is under 30 minutes.
We're going to want to start by preheating the oven to 325 degrees. Then we're going to get into our dry ingredients. So it's going to be 2 cups of flour, and I went ahead and pre-mixed my spices before I got started. And that includes nutmeg, cinnamon, ground cloves, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. Then we're going to get into our other ingredients, which starts with a stick and a half of butter softened, and then 2 cups of sugar. And since I don't have a hand mixer or a stand mixer, then I'm doing all of this with a spatula and my hands. It does take a little bit longer, and it is one heck of an arm workout, but it does yield about the same result. You just got to put in some elbow grease. Once the butter and sugar are well combined, then you're going to go ahead and grab 2 eggs and crack the eggs into the butter and sugar mixture, and then mix well. An easy way to get a good result when you're working with this part of the recipe, make sure that you're folding it in and scraping all of it down the sides. That way you make sure you get all of the butter and sugar combined with the eggs and you're not missing any of it. And now we're getting into the main part of the recipe, which is the pumpkin. So we're going to go ahead and get a 15-ounce can of pumpkin, pureed preferably, and we're going to go ahead and add that to the butter, sugar, and egg mixture. This is just what we're going to call our wet ingredients. Make sure that this is well combined as well. I also like to use the spatula that I've been using for the rest of the mixtures to get as much pumpkin out of the can as I can, so I don't waste any, and it also gives your bread better flavor at the end. So now we're getting to the point where we're going to want to add the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients and mix them together. I didn't want to have to do this from bowl to bowl, so I poured the dry mixture into a pitcher so it'd be easier to handle. And right about here, you're going to see me realize that that blue bowl was just a little bit too small to add all the ingredients into, so I poured it into the larger glass bowl, and that's where I decided to mix them together. That way I didn't run out of room and it didn't spill over the bowl. Now, the recipe that I was using called for greasing the pan. I don't like to grease the pan when I'm making pumpkin bread, mainly just because I like to use parchment paper instead. I think it's a lot easier to remove the bread from the pans after baking. You can just pick up the sheets from each end and lift, and it comes out easy as pie. It doesn't take any time at all, and it leaves barely any mess in the pan itself for easy cleaning once you're done. Also, I know this isn't going to seem like a big problem, but sometimes when you're trying to push the parchment paper into the pans, it doesn't like to stay. So as you can see here, I like to use some weights in the form of my measuring cups or just a random bottle of spices that I have around. I put that in there to keep it down in the pan so that the measurements are as exact as they can be. And here I'm using both of my spatulas to move the dough from the bowl into one of the pans. Usually people like to pour it. In this case, it came out a little bit thicker than I expected. So I'm just using the spatulas to scoop it in so that I can measure it out as efficiently and effectively as I can. If you're going to be approaching this in the exact same way as me, meaning that you're baking it in one large loaf pan and several small ones, then I would suggest putting the small ones on the bottom because they're not going to take nearly as long to cook as the larger pan, and then you can put the larger pan on the top so that you make sure that that top gets nice and crispy and everything's cooked all the way through. And we're gonna go ahead and set the oven timer for about 70 minutes or an hour and 10 minutes. I have noticed that if you fill up a larger loaf pan closer to the brim, that it's gonna take you about 80 minutes and you're gonna need to turn it in between. If you let it cook for the full 70, it should just take an extra 10 minutes for it to fully cook all the way through once you've turned it. And then here I took toothpicks and I stuck them into the bread. It's a trick that my mom taught me because my mom used to bake cakes when I was younger. All the toothpick is for is to see if any dough comes out of the bread with the toothpick. If dough comes out, the bread is not ready. If the toothpick comes out clean, then your bread is ready to go. And like I said, you can use this trick with cakes as well. It's a quick and easy way to tell if your bread is done or overcooking or undercooking. At this point, all of my toothpicks were coming out clean, so I decided to take all of my loaves out and I set them off to the side to cool for a few minutes. I let them cool for about 10 minutes because of the parchment paper, and then I was able to take them out and place them on a cooling rack so that they could cool a little bit faster. Here are all the little loaves on the cooling rack, and this was just a quick shot of me taking the parchment paper off. As you can see, they're holding shape and they've cooled off very, very quickly, so they're ready to get packaged and taken away to a friend's giving. This is Kate, and she was my sous chef.
I'm ready to cook.